All right. Well, today I wanted to talk about why corporate America wants you back in the office. So during COVID, I was actually blessed with the ability to work from home. It allowed me to save money on gas, not have to deal with wear and tear in my car. Save me money as I would typically make something at home for lunch and just gave me more time back in my day when I didn't have to sit in traffic for a half hour each day. I actually remember the day in which we were told we were working from home. I remember my supervisor at the time came up to me and he's like, "Hey, would you mind working from home?" And I was like, "No, of course not." He's just like, "Yeah, with this COVID bug, it might happen, but I'll let you know later in the day." And we're all talking about it. We're like, "This is awesome! Like, we get to work from home. Like, this is awesome." And yeah, he comes back over an hour later and said, "Hey, you guys are going to be working from home for the next week." And we're all like, we're hearing all this stuff about COVID. And I told my manager, I'm like, "I think it's going to be much longer than a week." But they made it sound like we were just going to be like working it from home for a week and then we would like come back to the office. Towards the end of 2022, my employer had everyone come back to the office and the transition was very difficult, to put it lightly. Like when you work from home for 2.5 years, I probably saved like $5,000 to $10,000 in gas, not having to, pay for tires if they're popped or, oil my car, maintenance. Didn't have to sit in bumper to bumper traffic and didn't have to deal with any like workplace politics and distractions in the office. And overall, like going back to the office, it was a downgrade in your day-to-day happiness, your lifestyle, as well as your wallet. I remember my company sending emails towards the end of 2022 when the time was getting closer to coming back to the office. They were sending emails like, "We want you back in the office to create a better, more unified culture. And we want to have the ability to collaborate together in person. We just want to see everyone's smiling faces. We just want to get back to being a family again." And whenever a corporation says, "Let's just be a family again," it's huge red flags. Like it's not, what's about to happen is not good. And the message was all about culture, collaboration, those types of like corporate jargon. But what executives will never tell you are the real reasons behind like why they actually want you back in the office. So executives of these companies will never be honest about the real reasons they want you back in the office. I think the biggest reason they want you back in the office is because of these like long-term leases your company has spent on the buildings. So when companies spend money on long-term leases, when they get locked into these long-term leases or they buy a building, like the company actually owns it, they need to justify the use of the building through employees using it on a day-to-day basis. And companies get locked into these long-term leases that are like 10 to 20, sometimes 30 years. And they need workers in the building to fulfill those lease obligations. But they'll never just like be honest and tell the workers that. They wouldn't do that because, one, it's a confusing message to tell the masses of workers that the company needs to satisfy these long-term leases because, workers, they'll come back with and say, "Well, that's not my problem." They also don't want their employees to know details like that about the company. It's kind of like the less employees know, the better for executives. I think the second biggest reason comes down to control. And executives of these companies, they don't trust their workers to do their jobs at home. And they think that workers are going to be slacking off, whether it's like, playing video games, taking a midday nap, or, watching Pornhub and wanking it. And the truth is that like executives just don't trust the workers to do the best job. So they want to be able to micromanage the workers in the office setting. And your manager wants to do the same thing as well. Like your manager, when you work from home, they can't see your productivity in real time, so they can't gauge whether you're working hard or how you're feeling in the moment. It's just honestly a lot easier for managers to micromanage their employees in an office than it is when the employees are at home, because if you're in the office and a manager senses the employee is slacking off, you can just go over to their desk and ask them, what they're working on, when they can't do that as easily virtually through like Microsoft Teams. And it really comes down to a lack of trust that executives have of their subordinates. But once again, they'll never say that in a company-wide message, because even though they do want control and they want to micromanage you in the office, that message would just sound barbaric. And in corporate America, company-wide messages from executives, they have to be very politically correct, fake, and like act like everything is just sunshine and rainbows when it's really the complete opposite. And I think from a control perspective as well, executives also don't want their workers to be geographically independent. Like they don't want you to be, they really want you to be stuck in the same location. They don't want you to be able to work from anywhere, because if you're able to live in different locations, let's just say, hey, I'm going to, in the wintertime, if you live up north in the wintertime, you say, hey, I'm going to live in Airbnb in Florida for 3 months. And then in the spring, I'm going to live out west. And then, I'll come back and live at home, in the summertime. They don't want you to do that. Like, they don't want you to have that level of freedom, because if you have that level of freedom, you may decide that you want to live in a place that you enjoy a lot more. Corporations, they really want you as an employee to buy a house or have an apartment and settle down close to the office and get stuck in like mounds and mounds of debt so they can keep you on that hamster wheel for longer and longer. When you have the ability to travel around and you aren't stuck in one location, you just have a lot more freedom and choice in your life. And a lot of companies don't want you to have that choice. I also think from a macro perspective, people that are in high power and also certain types of businesses, it doesn't have to be, people in high power that, want you back in the office. But, typically people in high power or certain types of businesses, they don't want you to have the ability to work from home because it affects their bottom line. For the 2.5 years during COVID, when people were working from home, less people were driving into work, and as a byproduct, people weren't buying as much gas. So it impacted the oil companies, and since people were driving a lot less people were buying cars. They're spending much less on their cars, so that's hurting, maintenance shops. It's hurting companies that are selling car parts, car accessories. And also restaurants were getting hit really hard too, even after they started opening up, towards the end of 2022. The town I work in has a lot of restaurants that really suffered because of all the companies in that same area, allowing their workers to work at home for 2.5 years. And as a result, like those restaurants got far, far less business than they normally would. And a lot had to shut down. And I remember when everyone went back to the office at the end of 2022 in the town I work in, I went to this pizza place. I used to go to this pizza place pre-COVID, and I decided to go back, and it was still open. But the guy at the front desk, he recognized me because I was like a regular there. I would go there maybe once a week on like a Wednesday to get a slice of pizza. He was like super happy to see me, and he was like, dude, yo, welcome back. It's good to see you again. And he never had that reaction, when I went there for years and years. And it's like a family Italian place. And so it was the same people that always worked there. And he's like, I'm so glad that you guys are back in the office. And I'd asked him, like, out of curiosity, I'm like, oh, like, how did this place do during the 2.5 years, we were, working from home? And he said, he was like, yeah, we almost had to shut down twice. And he basically said, he's like, yeah, I'm very grateful that everyone's back in the office, because we really almost shut down a couple times and it really got scary. So, all in all, it's a mixture of macroeconomic factors that, the elite don't want you working from home, but it's also the long-term leases and, executives just wanting that control and wanting the ability to micromanage. So the next time you hear the whole like culture and collaboration argument, you can just crack a smile and laugh and know the real reasons, they want you back in the office. Well, if you've enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like. Feel free to comment down below your opinion on why corporate America wants you back in the office, and feel free to subscribe. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care.